Hey, my name is McKay Caston, and as a pastor of 30 years, I know the unrelenting pressure of preparing weekly sermons. We have this dream, I had it myself, of having my sermons done by lunch on Wednesday, of having margin time for people and other ministry responsibilities, and a real day off. And my desire wasn't just to have my sermon done, but I wanted it to be a biblically faithful, theologically grounded, gospel focused expository message. But at some point during the week, that dream gets sidetracked because we get bogged down in commentaries. We keep re-outlining and rewriting our messages. We work on our day off and second guess it all on Saturday. And we don't want to burn out, but we also don't want to sell out to generic AI. The good news is there's a distinctively biblical sermon framework hiding in plain sight. And when you see it, sermon prep friction essentially evaporates, making the uphill grind every week a downhill flow. So I've created a web app called Preach 360 that uses that hidden framework to help you draft biblically faithful, theologically robust, gospel focused, expository sermons in a single afternoon without shortcuts and without generic AI. And you will preach grace with greater impact. You'll actually regain margin for ministry and get a real day off. And that day off isn't a luxury. It really truly is a necessity for long-term pastoral health and having a weekly rhythm so that you don't burn out and you can continue to serve your congregation for years to come. As we say, happy wife, happy life, healthy pastor, healthy church. Now, we know we can't always have that, but we do know this: unhealthy pastor, not always a great situation. So this is actually for the benefit of the pastor and the congregation. And it just might be that Preach 360 is the next step toward making not only healthy rhythms possible, but your pastoral dream a reality. And what is really cool is that this tool simply serves as a guide through the sermon prep process. Unlike generic AI tools, Preach 360 doesn't do the work for you. It guides you. It actually prompts you through a proprietary sermon blueprint that mirrors the creation, fall, redemption, and restoration meta-narrative of Scripture. From raw exegesis through full manuscript, you'll just follow your guide and trust the process. Zero guesswork, instant momentum, and pure joy. But the coolest part of this isn't the efficiency of the process. It's the theological foundation of the homiletical system. I find that it's best described using an illustration. Preaching can be like describing an acorn. You can hold the acorn up and say a lot of true things about it. It's smooth on the bottom, has a little point. It's got a rough cap. You can pop it off. You can cut it open, look at the inside, the soft part of the different layers, get down into the seed. But if you don't connect that acorn back to the oak from which it fell and into the oak into which it will grow, then you really haven't described the fullness of that acorn. And the same thing is true with sermons. When we preach a text, it is as though we are explaining an acorn. There's a lot of true things we can say about it. We can talk about its grammatical context, its literary genre, its historical background, its cultural context. But unless we put it in the overarching meta-narrative of the oak, the larger biblical redemptive story, we haven't really explained that text, at least not in its fuller redemptive context. And as I reflected on that, it dawned on me that just like an oak tree has DNA, the acorns that fall from that oak tree possess the same DNA as the tree. So that when it comes to homiletics, crafting sermons, and preaching, that when we look at a text, we now have a hermeneutical framework, not only by which we can understand the text, but by which we can now preach that text. So that if the meta-narrative, redemptive overarching story has 4 strands of DNA: creation, fall, redemption, and restoration, Every text is going to have those four strands, those four layers. Now, we use different terms. We use principle, problem, gospel, and response to parallel and mirror creation, fall, redemption, and restoration. And that gives us confidence for how to do both our exposition as well as how to structure the message. Because now we don't have to invent 3-point outlines. We just follow the organic outline that's already ready to be unfolded from the text. We don't have to force outlines onto a passage or shoehorn a passage into our outline. We simply, rather than invent, we unfold with the confidence that it's all there. It's this framework that's built into Preach 360, the one-of-a-kind, all-in-one sermon OS, which is going to help you create, draft, write biblically faithful, theologically robust, gospel-rich and focused, life-changing expository sermons every week and in a single afternoon. And as a bonus of all of the time saved, you will not only preach grace with more impact, you will reclaim margin per ministry and get a real day off. It does this by enabling you to trade 12 to 20 hours of scattered study for a simple 4-hour guided step-by-step process. No inventing, just unfolding. Again, zero guesswork, instant momentum, and pure joy. In fact, one of the folks in our ministry this week even told me after my first PPGR sermon using Preach 360, I cannot wait to open the app and start my next message. That was awesome. Absolutely love that. So let's take a look at what he saw on the inside. Here's the inside of the web app for Preach 360. And you'll see here I have my sermons. I have series and sermons, and I'm just going to start a new one here. And we can't go through everything because that would take probably too much time than you have set aside for this video. But I do want to give you eyeballs on it so you can see what is on the inside. So basically, you have a sermon title. I'm going to say Exchanging Roads. My passage is going to be Matthew 7 in the Sermon on the Mount, verses 1 through 5. This is the passage where Jesus talks about specks and logs and how we tend to judge. And the opportunity is to exchange our robes. Robes of the judge for the robe of the judge who actually gave his life for us and provides us with his robe of gift righteousness. But that's more in the message. Version, you can choose from a lot of versions here. And target audience, more specific you can be, the better. I'm going to say a youth group as far as my target audience. This could be a Sunday morning gathering, and then I would describe the kinds of folks who are there. You'll notice that what's happening is that you have on the left the blueprint. And up top, it also follows the blueprint in case you want to take this panel out for more space. I have it in dark mode now, but if you'd like it in light mode, you're welcome to do that. Hope it didn't blind you with that light coming on. So the first thing that's going to happen here will be our devotional reflection questions. We've already identified the text and the audience, and now we will simply go through these 5 devotional reflections to prime our own heart before we dive deep into the exegesis, because I want us to approach the sermon process not primarily academically, but devotionally. Is there an academic part of this? Absolutely. But we're going to leverage that toward the heart. We don't want to just provide information. We want to use the information and leverage that toward gospel transformation. So as we look here through the blueprint, for example, we'll start with the devotional reflections. We're going to then do exegetical analysis, just walk through the process. Then we're going to develop these fundamental aspects of building blocks of the sermon. And we call it pouring the foundation. We're going to do it in 3 blocks. We're going to pour the foundation like building a home. Then we're going to build the structure, use our foundational material to build the structure. Then we're going to seal the cracks. And that's revising, optimizing, and rehearsing the message. So here we'll see, we go from devotional reflections, exegetical analysis. We're going to then use our keyword. And again, these are things that you will learn as you go through the system. But this keyword is fundamental. It's going to lead us to a principle statement, problem, gospel, response. And you can already see PPGR. We have these creational, fall, redemptive, and restorative aspects of the message that are flowing through. And then we're going to have an anchor illustration and an opportunity for change. Now, all these things you will, if you pop this out, you'll see that you can go in to your side panel and go through all the videos. You have a tutorial library. You've got premium content that is open for everyone right now. It's a special. You can go through and check out our on-demand workshops and replays. You can go and look at all of our apps that we have in addition to this one, all of our latest teaching videos. We have a lot of content. But what I want to do now is simply go back to where we were in the sermon studio and show how we would walk through all these. Questions would be asked. We respond here in the chat. So you're saying, so what is this? Is this AI? This is an AI-powered tool that is built with the PPGR preaching system, which was developed before the AIs all came out. We have simply taken the technology and turned it into a Socratic coach that guides you through the sermon research and prep and revision and rehearsal process. It does not replace you. It truly does assist you. And so as you work through the message, the content that you put in here, whether it's in the small box or you pop it out and really dig down deep into some content, it will then be populated into an exegesis guide. You have notes. And so what these buttons here are the different panels. And it might help if I showed you a completed sermon, which I will do for you. We get to my sermons, get to this message here, which you'll see is complete because it has the manuscript here is complete. And you can move all these panels around. If you want to move it over here, it's all that kind of a lot of fun tools we have within the tool. However, what you'll notice is that this is a lot of engagement with the text that has taken place in the development of this message, which has led to the sermon manuscript, which is completely editable. But to show you the process, as you go through the blueprint, you will come to several points where you will create content. One is the exegesis panel. Right here is exegesis. And I'm going to click out of the manuscript so we can just see this, which gives you two ways to do it. You can do it on your own by being guided through each question, or you can have it generated for you, which will generate from our curated theological content. This is not just searching the web. It is curated content that has a theological foundation for our homiletical process. So you'll see an overview of the text. We have keywords, and we've got context. We've got word studies. And you can go as deep into these word studies and the content and the context as you want. It goes through the four movements of principle, problem, gospel, and then response down here, and it gives you theological insights, an expository summary of the text, even a cultural analysis of how the biblical worldview engages with secular psychology, religious moralism, even the Islamic worldview, and Hindu and Buddhism, to show how you could speak to any audience. And you'll see our sources. Here we've got D.A. Carson, John Stott, Martin Lloyd-Jones, Leon Morris, because those are part of our curated theological sources. So essentially, if it generates this for you, what's happening is it is creating a customized commentary for your sermon based on some of the best commentaries available on that passage. Then you're able to read this, go into it, expand on certain sections. For example, let's go to our word studies. And we wanted to do a word study, this word here. I'm simply going to say, expand the word study to include usage in the New Testament and pastoral applications. And as it is going to BDAG or BibleHub.org and things like that, where it can research the word accurately, it's then going to come back and here in the green, expand the study and give you what you asked for. Now, you can go much more deeply into this. If you want to do your Logos study, you can actually do that within this tool. Any kind of original language study, commentary study, you can do that here. In fact, you can pull up your notes panel and drop all of any study you have elsewhere here, and it will then be used and assist you in using it for your sermon. In addition to these panels, we have our expository maps, which show you how to use the PPGR framework in a verse-by-verse context flow or in the thematic flow of how it normally would just unfold in the text as conceptual outlines. Also gives you a lot of extra bonus material here. Then if you want to come out of the maps and look at the outline that it generates, this at the end of your manuscript, it will create an outline that can be used as a pulpit copy. If you just want to outline your message, that's where you would get that. You would then do optimization, where it will give you ideas on how to make targeted improvements in your manuscript. That's one great way to revise your message. And you have a coach here who can analyze it and say, here's where you can make an improvement, and here and here. And after that, you're good to go. It'll also then give you some rehearsal tips and advice with regard to the context of the passage and the audience, the folks to whom you are preaching the message. The main thing is built upon a solid theological foundation with a trusted biblical homiletical process to outline your messages according to the meta narrative of the gospel story itself.